Today, the word freelance is everywhere. Writers, designers, programmers, editors, videographers, consultants. Millions of people around the world describe their work using this single term. It suggests independence, flexibility, and control over one's time. But the word itself feels strange when you think about it. Free and lance don't obviously connect to laptops, invoices, or working from cafes. So where did this word actually come from? And how did it evolve from something literal and physical into a term that defines modern work culture? To understand why it's called freelance, we have to travel back centuries, long before offices, contracts, or even the idea of a career path existed. Let's dive in, right here, on History of Simple Things. To understand the word freelance, we need to start with the lance itself. A lance was a long weapon used by mounted soldiers, especially during the Middle Ages, designed for combat on horseback where speed and reach mattered. Knights and cavalry soldiers relied on lances to charge enemies, making them one of the most recognizable weapons of medieval warfare. These were not symbolic objects. They were practical tools meant for survival and dominance on the battlefield. In medieval society, weapons often represented loyalty and service because a soldier's lance was tied to who they fought for, whether a king, a noble, or a specific army. Carrying a lance usually meant fighting under someone else's banner and following their orders. The weapon, in many ways, became a visible sign of obligation rather than personal freedom. In modern language, free usually means independence or lack of restriction, but in medieval terms, it carried a more specific and practical meaning. A free soldier was not bound by permanent allegiance to a single lord, kingdom, or ruler. Many warriors worked as mercenaries, offering their combat skills to whoever was willing and able to pay. These soldiers were not slaves or serfs. They were legally free individuals who could negotiate their service and move on when a contract ended. Being free didn't mean safe, wealthy, or powerful. It meant mobile and replaceable. Survival depended on reputation, skill, and timing rather than protection from a higher authority. This early version of freedom laid the groundwork for a system where labor was exchanged by choice, a concept that would later become central to how we understand freelance work today. The term freelance first appeared in literature in the early 19th century and was popularized by Sir Walter Scott in his historical novel Ivanhoe, published in 1819. In the book, Scott uses the phrase freelances to describe medieval mercenaries, soldiers who were not pledged to a specific master and could fight for whoever hired them. These fighters were valued for their skill rather than their loyalty, making them useful in times of shifting alliances and constant conflict. Importantly, Scott wasn't inventing a fantasy concept. He was drawing from real historical practices that were well documented across medieval Europe. His writing gave a clear and memorable phrase to an existing idea, helping it stick in the public imagination. Over time, the term moved beyond fiction and into everyday language, where its meaning gradually expanded beyond warfare. After its appearance in literature, the term freelance began to shift away from its military roots. By the mid to late 19th century, writers and journalists started using it metaphorically. A freelance writer was someone who contributed articles to multiple publications without being employed by a single newspaper. The lance was no longer literal, it became symbolic. Instead of selling physical combat skills, people were selling intellectual or creative labor. This metaphor worked because the core idea stayed the same. a person offering specialized skills independently, without permanent loyalty to one employer. As industries expanded during the 20th century, freelance work became more common, especially in creative and technical fields. Journalism, photography, illustration, and consulting all relied heavily on independent contributors. Companies found it efficient to hire skilled workers temporarily rather than maintain full-time staff. Meanwhile, workers valued the autonomy freelancing offered, even if it came with financial uncertainty. During this period, the term freelance fully lost its connection to weapons and warfare. Few people thought about knights or lances anymore. The word had completed its transformation into a professional label. Today, freelancing has reached a scale that medieval mercenaries could never have imagined. The internet allows freelancers to work across borders, time zones, and industries, turning independent labor into a global system. Designers in one country can work for clients in another, while writers, developers, and editors collaborate entirely online without ever meeting face-to-face. Despite all this technology, the meaning of freelance remains remarkably consistent with its origin. Freelancers are still independent operators, choosing clients rather than pledging long-term allegiance to a single employer. The free part of the word reflects autonomy, while the lance quietly represents a skill being offered in exchange for payment. What has changed most is not the definition, but how easily this independence can now be sustained. So why is it called freelance? The term comes from medieval warriors who fought for pay rather than loyalty, selling their skills to whoever needed them. Over time, that idea evolved into a metaphor for independent work. Even today, freelancers still own their skills, choose their clients, and decide who they serve. The tools have changed, but the meaning behind the word remains the same. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.